DNI Tulsi Gabbard unveiling a newly declassified House intelligence report from back in 2020 that says exposes how the Obama administration tried to, quote, sabotage Trump in 2016 by pushing false narratives of Russian interference in the election.
Do you believe that any of this new information implicates former President Obama in criminal behavior?
We have referred and will continue to refer all of these documents to the Department of Justice and the FBI to investigate the criminal implications of this.
For even former President Obama?
Correct. The evidence that we have found and that we have released directly point to President Obama leading the manufacturing of this intelligence assessment.
Pretty unbelievable. Even though he was heading out of office, former President Obama responding in a statement saying, quote, our office does not normally dignify the constant nonsense and misinformation flowing out of the White House with a response, but these claims are outrageous enough to merit one. These bizarre allegations are ridiculous and a weak attempt at distraction. Fox News contributor and former Assistant U.S. Attorney Andy McCarthy joins us now. But yet, the former president was involved in trying to find out the role that Russia played and suddenly was interested in the role of possible collusion with the Trump campaign.
Yeah, well, Brian, I don't think that's a new disclosure or a new revelation. I wrote a book about this 8 years ago called Ball of Collusion, which laid this out. There's no doubt that Obama was complicit up to his neck in what I think was the worst political dirty trick in American history. The issue narrowly is whether there's any crime that comes out of that under circumstances where, you know, even President Trump spent all of 2024 telling people that presidents have to have complete immunity from prosecution, and this all happened 9 years ago.
True. And you had the statute of limitations. Got it. Couple of things I think that people should understand, and I think what the DNI is hoping for people to understand, is that the thought of Russia hacking our election was something that was being investigated since 2014, before Donald Trump was even running. And when they looked at what he did, they didn't infiltrate and make any significant infiltration into the election. And there was no evidence of any collusion with the Trump campaign. That seems trumped up by Barack Obama. Senator Ted Cruz said this about what the new paperwork that was just released. Tell me what you think.
December 8th, Obama's presidential daily briefing. Here's what it said, quote, we assess that Russian and criminal actors did not impact recent U.S. election results by conducting malicious cyber activities against election infrastructure. So all the way up to December 8th, over and over and over again, they say, no Russia, no Russia, no Russia. Well, December 9th should be a day that will live in infamy, because this is a moment when senior members of our government decided to lie to the American people and to sabotage President Donald Trump.
And really did for the next 2 years. Correct? And do you think we need to know why?
Well, I respectfully disagree with Senator Cruz's interpretation of that, because I think what he's referring to is they were concerned about Russian attacks on election infrastructure. And what they were talking about after the election was Russian hacking of the DNC and the messaging that was anti-Clinton that they put out. Even the Trump CIA agrees that that happened. So I think that, you know, the scandal here is they had a legitimate reason to investigate Russia's meddling in the election. And what they did was they used that as a pretext to basically investigate Trump, to spy on his presidency, and to try to make him an ineffective president. That's why it's a terrible political dirty trick. The issue, again, Brian, is it prosecutable? And I just don't see it.
Because of the statute of limitations, or you just don't see criminal behavior?
Well, you know, look, they're throwing around the word treason the last couple of days, which, you know, is preposterous, because treason is making war on the United States or aiding our wartime enemies, which obviously didn't happen here. Now, there is a statute that makes it a crime for people who are government officials, including, say, police, but even other kinds of government officials, to conspire against people's civil rights. If they were talking about that, I would think they were at least having a serious discussion of something that's a criminal statute that might fit this situation, but that's not what they're talking about to the moment.
And the last thing, the revelation was to say there's overwhelming evidence they were trying to infiltrate to help Donald Trump win is also wrong. They thought Hillary Clinton was going to win, and they wanted to diminish her as much as possible. Just real quick, is that correct?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. The finding that they meddled in the election to denigrate Clinton was correct, but it was because Putin thought Clinton was going to win the election. It wasn't to hurt Clinton in order to help Trump win. There's no evidence of that.
The book tells you a lot of this. You were ahead of the game, ahead of the curve. We'll see where this goes because there's more whistleblowers and paperwork going to emerge. Andy, let's stay in touch. Thanks so much.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.